All right, my name is Jeff Dunn, and I'll just kind of walk you guys through what is the Big Sky Area Sustainable Watershed Stewardship Plan. So just to look at it, we got the plan essentially broken into three sections. We have a short introduction. We have a section we're calling Alternatives Analysis for the areas in which this group reached consensus. And it's focused on our 3 water resource focus areas. And there's 12 total alternatives that we go through that there's consensus on. And then the third section is the implementation plan. And then there's a good chunk of appendices. So within the introduction, we kind of go through how this was a stakeholder-driven process, outline some of the community engagement and input activities that were accomplished, the goals and objectives of the forum, some of the challenges and opportunities that were facing the community in terms of water resources, expected outcomes of this process, and then a brief kind of introductory to the project area boundaries, looking at both the river systems and the sub-watersheds we're talking about, as well as the ownership boundaries and the demographics. And a couple of those maps in that section are displayed here, so you can take a look at those. Within the section 2, which is the alternatives analysis for the areas of consensus, we have our 3 focus areas, which are the ecological health of the river systems, water supply and availability, and wastewater treatment and reuse. So in the ecological health of the river systems, the alternatives that the group agreed on was watershed status and trends monitoring program, a watershed status and trends dashboard, and then watershed restoration and conservation. Within the water supply and availability focus area, areas with agreement included groundwater monitoring and modeling, strategies for water conservation, stormwater management, and mitigation of water rights. And then in the wastewater treatment and reuse focus area, areas with consensus were to treat the wastewater to the limits of technology, address septic systems and small community systems, expand water reuse for irrigation, develop water reuse for snowmaking, and investigate shallow groundwater recharge. So each one of these sections is essentially broken into 2 pages discussing each of these alternatives. And within each of those 2 pages, we kind of go through a standard process where we review the purpose of the alternative, technical considerations, policies, regulations, and laws, economics and cost considerations, community interest and support, and potential partner organizations. So if you're interested in kind of one of these subject areas, there's a 2-page kind of piece that you can review and kind of go through and try to answer and see all these questions that we kind of grappled with and the conclusions we came up with for each area. And then the third section is the implementation plan. So this is how we're going to implement these ideas and start getting stuff done. There's a discussion on the capacity needs for implementation, the partnerships that participated in this forum and the need for ongoing engagement, as well as funding. And then we developed action items for each of the 12 alternatives, and we broke those into quick start things we could do right now, short-term things, and then things in the mid to long term. So we're looking kind of on a 10-year type planning horizon. So just to take an example of what one of those looks like, everything is kind of a 1 or 2 page blurb on those as well, and then a table. And then the tables, kind of broken into columns, what we want to do in the quick start, moving into short term, mid-term, and long term, and the activities kind of progressing through them. And then finally, we have the appendices, which has included a bunch of the stuff that went on around the forum and in the forum, a summary of the initial kind of work, a bunch of summaries of the stakeholder presentations that occurred in the forum, which are also available on the task force website, a community survey that was conducted for outreach, some of the sub-watershed maps, environmental indicators, some analysis we did on water yield, some of the unanswered questions, which we'll talk about later, and then some infographics, which you can see kind of on these colorful boards in the back of the room. And that is the report in a nutshell.
Good job.